Hello folks, Matthew Peterson here with another YouTube video for you, and this one is covering how to use collections inside of your Canvas applications and some different use cases of why you might want to do that. So if you're interested in learning about collections, let's head on over and start making some collections in a Canvas application. Alright, so let's make a collection. Let's talk about why I would make a collection. So let's say you've got some data and that you're trying to show, like let's say in a gallery, and you want your users to be able to select multiple records at a high level and then maybe go to another screen and see all the details about those selected records. So another idea of this is I worked with a company where they checked out surveillance equipment for their undercover agents, and they made an app for basically, I want this cool gadget, let me select all the ones I think I want, let's take them to a new screen, see all the details about those, and then they make their decision. So there's other use cases for collections, but this is the one that I'm going to use for this one. Multiple records being selected, then show the details about them. So let's get it set up here. The first thing that you can see in my app is I just have a gallery with some patient data. And the goal is I want to check off different patients and then go and see the details about those patients on my other screen. So in order to do this, the first thing I'm going to do is on my gallery, I'm going to go up to my template cell, and then I'm going to insert a nice little checkbox here. So I'm going to put in a checkbox. I'm going to get rid of the text on the checkbox itself. And then I'm going to make it just a little bit smaller. It's not the prettiest app for this one. We want to get straight to the point. So I've got my checkbox up here now. So now the next thing to decide is what should happen on the checkbox itself. Well, the checkbox control has an OnCheck property. So this is where the collection is going to start. So what I'm going to say here is when we put a check in, let's collect this record, store it in the background, and then we can use that somewhere else inside of our application. So for the OnCheck, what I put in here to start with is the formula called collect. And I'll move my mouse here and make it easier to see. So collect, open parentheses. Now I give my collection a name. I always like to prefix my collections with COL, and I'll just call it COL patient. Then I put in a comma, and then I choose what do I want to store inside of my collection. Now I would like to store the entire record. So I'm just going to tab on over and say this item, and then I'll close that out. So now the question is, does this in fact work? Well, what I can do here is I can hold down my Alt key instead of going into full play mode, and I'll put a few little checks in here. And then whenever you have collections in an app as a developer, when you're ready to see those, if you go over to your variables and then you expand collections, you'll see your collection name. This says I have 3 rows in it. And now if I click on 3 dots and click View Table, now we can see that I've now made 3 different records inside of my collection. All right, so I'm going to cancel out here so I know that part is working. Now on to the next part. Well, what should happen when I uncheck the patient? Well, that means I no longer want it inside of the collection itself. So just like they have an OnCheck property, there's also what we call an OnUncheck property. So for my OnUncheck property, instead of false, I now want to get rid of it from my collection. So I'm going to put in here, remove, open parentheses, from where I want to remove something from the collection. So call patient, comma, then this item. And then I close that off with the parentheses. So now if I hold down the Alt key and I get rid of 2 of my records here, and then I come back on over, give it a second to refresh here. So I'll hit the 3 dots. I'll hit View Table, and now I just have the 1 record. So we're now effectively able to add something to the collection and remove something from the collection. So now what else do we need to kind of plan for in this scenario? Well, let's get to the next step where let's use the data that we've chosen here. So what I'm going to do is go to my next screen, and we're going to come on over, and on this screen, I'm just going to put in a nice quick gallery. So I'm just going to put in a gallery, and then what I want to put in my gallery is my collection. So I'm going to search for my collection here, and the collection is not popping up. All right, let's do it this way. I'll come up here to my items. I'll put it in at this point. So call patient. There it goes. Just took a little bit of a while for it to pick up. Normally it shows in that drop down, but sometimes you have to go back and write the formula yourself. And notice now I have just one record inside. And then if I want to change this, I could go to title, subtitle. I can keep it image here. I'll just keep everything that I've got from the originally. So I'll say this item dot my patient photo. And then if I want to put something into the subtitle, this item dot, I don't know, what do I want to see? This item dot, I don't know, last name. But see here, what you could do at this point is you have that high level gallery at the very beginning where I just showed the picture and the name. On this one is where I could start to add in as many values as I want to, and it's only for that selected operation. So a pretty good use case. Now, what I want to do next is let's talk about the rest of the app in terms of the navigation features. So here's what I mean by that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a button on this screen. So let's say once they're done, they want to go back to the home screen. So I'm just going to put in a quick little icon here. So I'm going to put in the home icon and I'll bring it on over here, make it really, really big. It's not the prettiest app. Again, we want just functionality today in this video. And I'm just going to say navigate to the first screen. So SCR browse is what I called mine. So when I hit play here and I go home, notice what I now see at this point. I don't see any of my records currently selected. All right, so let's try something out here. I'm going to come on over. Let me put some navigation on this button here. Let's get the full effect. So I'm going to say navigate to SCR details. And I'm going to play my application and make a few little selections. I'll say see selected patient details. There's all three of them. When I click on home, come back. Oh, don't like that. Or you might like that. For me though, what I would think for most of my users is after they make a selection, when they come back to the overall screen, do we still want those records to be selected? If so, you got nothing else to worry about. But if you want them to not be selected, you probably want to do something a little bit different here. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to wipe out the collection anytime the user gets back to this screen. So the way that we're going to do that is we're going to close out of our preview here. And on the screen itself, we're going to go to its onVisible property. So basically saying when this screen becomes visible in your app, what do you want to do? And well, in this case, I want to wipe out my collection. So to wipe out an entire collection, it's called the following: clear, open parentheses, the name of your collection, and then we close it out. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit play again. I'm going to click see patient selected details. I see my three here. I'm going to hit home. And looks like it didn't quite work. Let's take a look here. So let me close out of my preview. Let me go to the variables here. And it did work. Notice it says call patient. There are 0 rows in there. So effectively, we've done it. We have cleared out the collection. But the problem is those check marks still stayed there. Well, there's a reason behind that, and that's the last thing that I'm going to fix in this video here. And then hopefully I'll bring you some other collection video ideas of like multi-select all of them at once or clear all of them at once. We're going to keep this one shorter today though. So what I'm going to do here is we are going to go back to our tree view and we're going to click on our checkbox. And on our checkbox here, we have a property called the default property. And the default property is set to false. Now what that means being set to false is whenever the user plays the app for the very first time, no checks show up in the checkbox. After that moment in time, it's going to honor whatever the user has done to it. So if they put the check mark there, it's going to be there forever until they manually uncheck it themselves. And that's not what we want here, because now our users, one, they're going to have to uncheck these. Two, they're going to think that the ones that are checked, when they come back to the screen, they're like, oh, the checks are still there. They must still be my collection. Well, we know that's not the case because we cleared it out. So we need to make this a little bit more dynamic, to not just say false or just say true, but look at a formula that returns a true or returns a false. If the formula returns a true, the check mark will show. If the formula returns a false, the check mark will not show. So the last little bit of code to get this fully functional here is we're going to go to that default. And on the default, I'm going to get rid of the word false here. And I'm going to say, hey, Power Apps, what I want you to do is look to see if this item, so this record, also, so to speak, is in the collection of our patients. So is this item in call patients? All right, but it's still not quite picking up on my collection name. So let me make sure I've referenced it right. Call patient. There you go. Got to get it exactly right. But my IntelliSense was definitely not trying to help me out this time. There we go. This item in call patient. Now notice what just happened. My checks that we just saw a few moments ago have now disappeared. Why is that the case? Well, that is the case because this record is not in the collection because we had wiped out the collection right before we got here. But let's see if it works the regular way as if we're playing the app. Make sure it's just not a false, success here. So I'm going to hit play, and I'm going to go with Allison here, and Charlie, and all these names are fictitious. All right, and then I'll go with Camille. So now these records are in the collection, so the check mark is showing because it's true. I'll say see selected patient details. Again, this is where you put in more details here. I'll click on home. The collection was wiped out. These records are no longer in, and therefore the check mark no longer shows. So if you're a little bit newer to collections, hopefully that's something that might be helpful in your future apps. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like. Also, if you enjoyed learning from us, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well, so you can be up to date on all the newest and greatest videos we put out. So again, I hope you enjoyed, and if that's the case, hopefully I'll see you in another video somewhere down the road. Thanks so much.